Welcome to Be Real Talks. Today we have Jeffrey Moss joining us. He is the founder and CEO of Parker Dewey. In this role, Jeffrey works with colleges, universities, foundations, companies, and students to help improve the college to career transition process. Beyond Parker Dewey, Jeffrey is passionate about the importance of education for all students. Due to this passion, he has worked to improve educational outcomes for the students who are not as fortunate as he was. Both as an investor and through nonprofit endeavors, Jeffrey has supported organizations serving K-12 students, individuals with special needs, colleges and universities, and adult learners. He spent much of his career as a venture capitalist investor supporting technology-enabled organizations in the education, business services, and software sectors as well. Today, we're going to be talking about gaining experience through micro-internships. Thank you so much for joining me, Jeffrey.
Thank you, and you made me sound much more impressive than I am. I appreciate that.
Great. So my first kind of question, so we can get to know you a little bit more. What influences your passion and drive for helping low-income students find opportunities?
Yeah, I think it's the fact that I've recognized how fortunate I was growing up in a family where education was so important, and my mother was a teacher. I think I've always just taken it for granted. Again, the importance of education, and then also the fact that upon graduating college, I had so many opportunities available, and just throughout my career as an investor in education and technology, as you mentioned, I had the opportunity to engage with so many students that didn't have those same advantages. Students that were smart, hardworking, had grit, motivation, passion, but that were oftentimes getting filtered out because they didn't have the quote-unquote academic pedigree. And actually getting to know these students, I saw how amazing they were, and I just really was trying to find a way that we could really provide this equitable access for all of these amazing learners and start to level the playing field.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example. Oftentimes, kind of when we hear individuals who are motivated to do this work, it does stem from that own personal experience, right? Wanting to give back and help. But you really show that you are an active advocate. You go beyond that kind of armchair allyship by really having a direct role in these kinds of initiatives. So,
thank you.
Going a little bit further, kind of building on that, what really inspired you to create Parker Dewey?
Yeah, it was this recognition of the pain. And in fact, it happened when I was an investor. So to give the sort of the founding story, in January of 2015, I had, again, as I mentioned, I'd gotten to know so many of the students over the years. And at one of our partners meetings, we discussed getting rid of the summer internship program at our firm. So every year we would have 5 to 7 interns, really smart, hardworking. By the way, we were guilty of the same biases as everyone else, that we were only recruiting students from certain schools or majors or GPAs, filtering out the vast number of applicants based simply on academic pedigree. So we were guilty of the same bias. But even after running all of these highly motivated, high potential candidates through our process, behavioral interviews, structured interviews, like the whole gamut, what we found was of the 5 to 7 that we brought in every year, the vast majority, we realized the first week, weren't the right fit. And it wasn't that they weren't smart or hardworking. It just wasn't the right fit, because for some students, they came in and thought venture capital was going to be like Shark Tank. And they were going to sit in at sort of a series of chairs making decisions where to invest. For others, they thought it was all number crunching, and they didn't have the interpersonal skills, or they just didn't have the interest. And we actually discussed getting rid of our program because of that. And it wasn't the financial reason. It was just the time. Having students for 10 weeks over the summer in the office is a huge commitment. And what was interesting is later on in that same partners meeting, one of my colleagues was talking about all of these projects that we had on our plate, and we didn't have enough full-time associates to work on it. And one of my partners made a comment, well, I guess we have plenty of work for the interns this summer. And that's where the light bulb went off. That first of all, beyond the fact we were discussing getting rid of our internship program, how come an internship needs to be limited to just 10 weeks over the summer? That every professional at every company, doesn't matter what industry, company size, etc., we all have these projects on our plate that may not be the best use of time for us, or there may not be enough hours in the day, but there are millions of college students who would love to get those experiences, to dip their toe in the water, to build their resume, to earn some income, and really use these projects as a way to start to level the playing field. Because as a hiring manager, if it's an individual project, you're starting to be able to break down those burdens or those barriers, if you will, of academic pedigree. So for a firm that only recruits from Ivy League schools, are they willing to, quote unquote, take a chance on someone if it's a single project where the commitment is lower? Can they take a chance on someone from a different school? And can we start to, again, use these projects to level the playing field, if you will?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's really important for students to hear that behind the scenes kind of look on the thought process that goes into internships and then leading up to kind of that project-based work, right? Well, let's give them a chance in that kind of scenario.
Well, and again, to your point, the student perspective, I mean, part of the founding story is also my own experience that I did my summer internship in undergrad at one of the big 6 accounting firms. And just to show you how old I am, there were 6 back then. I did my internship at a big 6 accounting firm. In the first week, I realized I didn't want to be a public accountant. I was stuck there for the next 9 weeks. And again, stuck is probably the wrong word. I still learned. I still got experience. But that was my only opportunity to really get professional experience before graduating from college. So I went back to school in the fall, and I had one data point of one thing I didn't think I wanted to do. And by the way, no context for which I could compare it. And now I'm going into the recruiting process for a full-time role without that, call it, context of what it is I want to do. Through sort of micro-internships, students, beyond getting access into companies and a foot in the door, they can really explore a variety of different roles. Do I want to work at a big company or small? Do I want to do accounting versus finance versus marketing? Or gosh, I think I like marketing. Do I want to do marketing analytics versus content versus brand management? What we're trying to do is give students the opportunity to really do that career exploration earlier in their academic careers, ultimately to determine what is the right summer internship and then ultimately full-time role.
Yeah, and you highlight well how it's shorter term and really you can kind of diversify your experiences as a student seeking out micro internships. But then on the other side of that, it's low pressure, right? It's less of a kind of commitment for the student, whereas, they see it as project-based work versus a long-term internship.
And to be crystal clear, we don't think micro-internships should replace the 10-week summer internship or the full-time role. So we believe the level of depth a student gets from a 10-week on-site experience is incredible. And the same is true for employers. The level of insight they get in relationship building with a student is incredible. Where we think this fits in is very much almost as a precursor. And one of the college students on our platform described it really well as job dating. And at first I was a little like, not so sure. I said, let me explain. He said, the summer internship is like an engagement. It's a deep dive into a company, and the full-time role is like getting married. So we don't have a chance to date before getting engaged or getting married. And I pushed back a little. I said, well, what about info sessions? What about on-campus events, career fairs, super days, and all of these other events that companies are creating for you as a student to learn more about their organization? And his response is, those are great. Those are important and valuable, but that's not a date. That's like being on a dating site where you're swiping right or left or whatever, where everyone's putting their best face forward or their best foot forward. It's like, I want an opportunity to actually have an experience with someone. I want an opportunity to date a company in an industry I might not have thought of. Because to your point, the commitment is so much lower. Worst that happens is, you know what? I had a good story. I made a couple of bucks. I put something on my resume. Best that happens is you find something you may not have thought of. You're, again, able to explore and test and really try out different things in this very authentic setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so you did mention how the intention of Parker Dewey isn't to get away from the 10-week traditional internship. So what advice do you have for low-income students that are hesitant about pursuing longer-term unpaid internships?
Well, you added a word in there that I think is important, which is unpaid. No one should take an unpaid internship, period, full stop, end of conversation. Unpaid internships are blatantly unfair. They are becoming, fortunately, a lot less popular and a lot less common. They border on illegal. Again, companies really have to jump through hoops to make sure they're not violating legal things about it. We believe students should be paid for their work. And unpaid internships or unpaid experiences even, not only are they unfair, but they actually hinder so many of the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives of companies, because the only people who can afford to work for free are those from more affluent backgrounds or more prestigious backgrounds. So we just don't believe in unpaid internships. And what's been interesting is over the past couple of years, we've seen some interesting, call it relatives of unpaid internships, that are called challenges. So a company's going to put a challenge out there, and we're going to invite as many students as possible to spend time trying to help us solve this business problem we have. And the winner gets paid $500 or $1,000 or some number. And those are unfair also. Because think about it, if you as a student invest all of this time in a challenge in one of these experiences and you don't win, I mean, it's almost worse than an unpaid internship because you're not even going to put it in your resume. I went and did a challenge and I didn't win. Like, no one's going to put that on their resume. And again, to be clear, that's very different than case competitions, very different than university sort of sponsored programs that have the faculty support and corporate support and team building and mentoring. Very, very different. I'm talking about these challenges that companies put out there and basically are asking students to work for free where they're going to pick a winner.
Yeah. And so you talked about how micro-internships benefit in terms of kind of diversifying your portfolio in a way, your resume, right? What are some of the other benefits of micro-internships?
Well, it's building the resume is one key thing, because for a student, being able to convey that they did a project for a big CPG company where they were asked to do a competitive analysis of companies in the flavored water space. That's pretty interesting. Or that student that does 5 or 10 of these experiences, what they're able to do is demonstrate and highlight a variety of different skills. So it's not just the fact that you work for all these companies and demonstrate your grit in doing so, et cetera. It's that you're demonstrating a variety of different skills. So when you did the competitive analysis, it might highlight your problem-solving skills or your research skills, versus when you wrote a blog article for a different company, you're demonstrating your communication skills, versus your data analytics project where you're demonstrating, again, different sets of skills. So it lets students highlight a variety of different skills. But the other thing it does, and this is really important, is that career exploration piece is vital, not just for the student, but also for the company. And what I mean by that, for the student, it helps them understand where is the right fit for him or her before jumping into that, again, engagement of the summer internship or marriage of a full-time role. But for companies, it's also vital. 55% of new hires leave their first job within the first year upon graduation. And they're doing it because they view the grass is greener elsewhere. They take that first job. They don't have the context to understand that the sexy startup might not be the right fit for them, or that the big company may not be the right, they don't have that data. What we're trying to do is let students do that exploration beforehand. And then when they're in a job interview, to be able to convey to a company why it is the right fit and why they're not going to leave after 6 months, because they already know that they have chosen the right job and aren't going to be influenced by a company that the grass may seem greener, but it's actually not. So for employers, that's incredibly valuable given how much they invest, not just in recruiting, but onboarding and training and mentoring new hires.
Yeah, and also, so would you say that if students are completing micro-internships, are they, in your experience, have students been able to really articulate the skill side of what they've been doing? Because a lot of the times when students pursue internships, it's very much field focused, right? Or trying to network in a particular field.
Yeah, first of all, it shouldn't be mutually exclusive with the summer internship. And in fact, a lot of the students who have been through micro-internships have talked about the fact they've gotten so much more out of their summer internship for the reason you highlighted, because it's not just about the networking and relationships building, it's some of the other things. What we found is this project-based approach to the micro-internship really helps students better convey those skills, to your point, because it is a defined project with a defined beginning, a defined end, a defined deliverable that the student is very, very well able to convey those skills they demonstrated. What's also vital about this is it's especially true for students who are pursuing majors that don't sound like job titles. So as a philosophy or English or history major, we're helping the students understand, appreciate, and communicate the crosswalks between the skills honed in some of those classes in the quote-unquote real world. So as a philosophy student, when I'm doing a market research project, I'm demonstrating my ability to do research and communicate effectively and craft an argument. And we spend a lot of time helping the students understand those crosswalks and then again, communicate them effectively to prospective employers.
Yeah, I do see that, especially like you're saying for the philosophy, humanities kinds of students, it can be tough for them to really make those connections. And I could definitely see how micro-internship will help benefit that.
Yeah.
Outside of that though, what are other ways that low income students can really build skills?
Yeah. Well, first of all, look, we view micro-internships at the core of so many of these things. That these experiential learning, I mean, there's a reason we named the organization Parker Dewey. It's after Francis Parker and John Dewey, who were sort of the thought leaders 100 plus years ago around the value of experiential learning. So we fundamentally believe in it, but we believe it's a catalyst for so many other things. So it's not a replacement for the summer internship. In the same way, it's not a replacement for post-secondary education or taking traditional courses, whether it's on-site or online in this environment. So where we see a lot of students using these projects, especially low income, is I might be working on a market analysis project in the education space. I might reach out to Jeff, the alum from my university who works in education, and pick his or her brain. Hey, Jeff, I'm doing a project on behalf of a big education company on the virtual charter schools. I know you have some experience in this space. Can I get your insights? Can I get your feedback? And again, think about how valuable that relationship building is beyond the project itself, but just to your point in building that professional network. And it's creating that catalyst for the conversation. So I, as a student, especially a first gen who might not have sort of had the upbringing of going to cocktail parties and engaging with adults in the professional setting, this creates a catalyst to build that engagement with professionals. The same way we're seeing students going to faculty members during office hours. To a professor that is teaching finance, students are going in and saying, I was asked to do a discounted cash flow. Can I get your insights, Professor whomever, on setting the weighted average cost of capital for a startup in whatever space? So again, they're really creating these catalysts for conversations, whether it's with alumni, faculty members, and otherwise, that have a benefit beyond the projects itself, but in building these authentic relationships.
Yeah, and so I have a question kind of building on that, especially for first gen low income who really lack that kind of cultural capital. Parker Dewey is all online interaction, right, from the application process to completing the project. So what advice do you have for students that are intimidated to make that initial jump into this kind of networking project-based workspace?
Yeah, so remote work is nothing new for us, to your point. This is not a reaction to COVID, although it's especially relevant right now. This is something we've been finding for 5 years. And again, pre-COVID, 98, 99% of the projects were remote. 1 or 2% of the projects were, in fact, on site. To your point, we do a lot of hand-holding or guidance, if you will, for students, especially during their initial projects. We're providing students with best practices for engaging with professionals on these micro-internships. We're providing the rails to make sure they have great experiences. So as a student, when you're selected for your first micro-internship, we're giving you a template. Here's an email similar to what you should be sending to the hiring manager before your project. Here's a template of ways that you may want to communicate with him or her. So we're really giving them the nudges and supports to build those relationships because, look, there's some projects where it's simply an exchange of email. We want you to research and draft an article on blank. Send us it when it's done. That is the exception. 95% plus of companies actually want to build that authentic relationship with the student. Hey, Jeff, congratulations on being selected for this project. Let's hop on a quick Zoom call to discuss. Or let's check in along the way, or as you have questions, let's schedule a phone call. Or if you happen to be geographically convenient, again, pre-COVID, why don't you come by the office for a kickoff meeting or for a final presentation, or I'm going to be on campus next month. would love to take you out for a coffee just to get to know you. So we see it again, creating this catalyst for this authentic engagement. What I would tell students also, especially those who are first gen, low income, or come from underrepresented populations, but I guess it's true for all the students, we do a very good job of setting and managing the expectations of the corporate clients. They know your college students. They are not expecting someone with 20 or 30 years of experience working on these projects. They've been scoped specifically so a college student can be successful, assuming that college student puts in the effort. And that's important. And again, they're using this as part of their recruiting process. They're using it to build these relationships. They want to build the relationships. And that's part of the reason why we've seen over 80% of the students selected for micro-internships come from underrepresented populations.
Yeah, and as somebody who works with students regularly and markets Parker Dewey, that's great insight to know about, the templates and the longer term interaction than I kind of knew was going on. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I know I have a running joke with one of my colleagues about how I feel like we pretty much work for Parker Dewey at this point because we market their resources so much, so valuable for low-income, first-gen, as you said, marginalized students. So appreciate the work that you are doing.
Well, thank you. And that means a ton. Again, when we started Parker Dewey, we saw this opportunity where everyone's interests are aligned. The colleges and universities like y'all, the students, and the employers. Everyone wants to see students getting great jobs upon graduation. Everyone is motivated for that. So anything we can do to help facilitate that, again, we are. And again, we couldn't do it without support of such thought leaders like you and your team. So thank you for that. And again, hopefully we're also supporting the universities. What we see so many of the schools doing is using these micro-internships as a way to deepen engagement with existing employers. Those employers who are on campus getting to know your students, this provides them with early access to students, or lets them look beyond certain majors or GPAs, or lets them get a competitive advantage in their campus recruiting or nurture the relationships. And then again, for those employers you're trying to bring to campus who haven't historically visited, it's a great way to show them how wonderful your program is by letting them in the same way dip their toe in the water and experience students from different schools and majors and backgrounds, even if they're not yet focused schools. So again, thank you for that work, and hopefully it's driving real benefit for you and your students and your entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to seeing, the changes that come about due to Parker Dewey once we kind of get out of the COVID space.
Thank you.
And yeah, so thanks again for taking the time to speak with us.
My pleasure, and sorry for this horrible background.
You're good.
We're away with the family for the week, so I really appreciate the opportunity. And again, sorry for any background noise and the like.
Absolutely. And to all the students watching, I will see you on the next one.